Today, we're talking all about gratitude. Since Thanksgiving is just around the corner, I thought it'd be a good time to dive into the topic of teaching kids to be thankful. But no matter when you're listening to this episode, teaching gratitude is always a good thing. So today, I've got ideas for 5 different picture books, all with the theme of gratitude and some different ideas that you can do with them. So let's go. I think in this day and age, when so many teachers are struggling with kids who have bad attitudes and sometimes rude or mean behavior, teaching gratitude is really necessary in the classroom. Kids are going to come to you with lots of some might be very privileged and get everything they want, and that can result in kids who feel entitled all the time. Other kids may come from homes where there isn't much at all, and they may struggle to recognize any good things in their life. So, as teachers, we can really help kids learn to notice and appreciate what they have, whether it's big or small. So today we're going to take a look at 5 picture books, all with the theme of gratitude, and talk about some ways that you can use them in your classroom. All right, so number 1 is Thank You, Omu by Olga Mora. This book is about a woman who makes a delicious pot of stew, and it smells so good that different people start showing up at her door for a taste. By the end of the day, she's given away all the stew, and there's none left for her. So all the townspeople gather together to bring Omu a wonderful meal to thank her for her generosity. In my classroom, we'd read this story, and then we'd make a pot of thankful stew, where each ingredient stood for something in school that we were thankful for. It wasn't real stew. It was made of either different types of cereal or candy. And as we added each of the ingredients to the stew, we'd talk about the different things that we were thankful for in school. I had the kids all gather around a table where I had a big bowl that represented our school and a bunch of different little bowls with different cereals in them. And each bowl had a letter attached to it, and the letters spelled out the word thankful. So as we added each ingredient to the bowl, we'd talk about what we were thankful for at school. For instance, the first ingredient was T for teachers, because our teachers help guide us and learn new things every day. The second ingredient was H, and that stood for the helpers in our school, the people like our custodians or our librarian or the cooks. And so we'd add all the ingredients, and eventually we'd spell out the word thankful. It was a great way to remind kids of all the reasons that we should be grateful for coming to school each day. Okay, book number 2 is The Gratitude Jar by Katrina Liu. It's a very sweet story about a little girl named Mina who's not having a very good day. She keeps grumbling to her mom about all the fun things that other kids are doing or places that they got to go. And so her mother gets a big glass jar and she tells her that they're going to make a gratitude jar. She tells Mina that each day she can draw or write something down that she feels grateful for. So at first Mina has a little bit of a hard time thinking of things to put in the jar, but as time went on, she thought of lots of things, and in fact, there were so many things in the jar that eventually they had to replace it with a bigger gratitude jar. It's a very simple but actually powerful reminder for kids and adults, really, that even little things like a hug from a friend or a sunny day can make a big difference when we take the time to appreciate them. So a great activity to do with this book is to make a gratitude jar. You can keep it at your carpet area maybe, and every day you and your class can put little notes in it of things that you're thankful for. You can designate a specific time each day to add something to your gratitude jar. A great time would be right before dismissal when you could sort of recap your day with your class and then decide what you could be thankful for that day. You can ask your class for different suggestions and then choose 1 or 2 to add to the jar. Your kids might say stuff like they had pizza in the cafeteria for lunch and they really love pizza day. Or maybe somebody might say that they played a fun game on the playground and they were thankful for that. Or they got an A on their spelling test. It could be anything. Point is just to help kids begin to recognize and notice the little things that they can be grateful for each day. And then, right before Thanksgiving break or December break, open it with your class and read all the notes together. You could open the jar once a month or maybe just a few times a year. I think if you make this a regular practice in your classroom, kids will really begin to look forward to it. Okay, my third book suggestion is Those Shoes by Mary Beth Boltz. This is a great book to talk about wants versus needs and really being thankful for the things we have. It's about a little boy named Jeremy who really wants a pair of cool black high-top tennis shoes. They sort of look like Converse, and everyone at school is wearing them. So he asks his grandma if he can have a pair, but she tells him that they can't afford them and that what he really needs are a pair of warm winter boots. And so one day, when one of his shoes just completely comes apart, he goes to the guidance counselor who finds a pair of shoes in Lost and Found and puts those on Jeremy. But the other kids make fun of him for wearing them. And so Jeremy ends up going to a thrift store and he finds the pair of shoes that he really wants, those high top black Converse, but they're too small. And so even though he really wants them so badly, he ends up giving them to a friend who needs them more. So it's a really great story about not only kindness and doing for others, but also recognizing the difference between a want versus a need. So one activity you can do with this book is to create a simple chart with your kids about wants versus needs. You can help them think of things that they really, really want and decide, is it a want or is it a need? They might say stuff like, I want the latest video game or Barbie doll, or I want to go to Disneyland. And then you can talk about whether they really need that or if they just want it. So you can show them how things like a warm place to live or healthy food, those are needs, and toys or vacations are wants. And then you can have your kids make a list of things that they need or want, and you could even have them write about something that they have that they're grateful for, even if it isn't the newest or fanciest thing. All right, book number 4 is Last Stop on Market Street by Matt Della Penna. This book is about a little boy named CJ and his grandma who are riding the city bus home after church one Sunday. At first, CJ starts complaining about all the things he doesn't have that he sees other people with, like a nice car, or a fancy phone, or other nice things. But as his grandma starts to talk to him about all the things that he can be grateful for, CJ starts to notice the beauty all around him. He starts to hear the nice music on the bus, or he feels grateful for the people that they meet on the bus or as they're walking through town. And he just starts to notice kindnesses in his everyday life. By the time they reach their stop, which is a soup kitchen where he and his grandma serve the meal, CJ realizes how much he already has to be thankful for. So it's a really great story about gratitude and seeing the good in the world. So an activity that you could do with this book is to have your kids make a gratitude map. They can use construction paper to make a little map of their town, and then they can put all the places that they're grateful for on the map. They can add places like their house or school or church, or maybe the park, or maybe the grocery store where they shop for food. And then you could even have them write a few sentences about the places they're grateful for. All right, and then finally, book number 5 is Bear Says Thanks by Karma Wilson. I like reading this book in the fall and around Thanksgiving because in the story, Bear wants to throw a big feast for his friends. But when he looks around, his cupboards are completely empty. But then, one by one, his animal friends start to show up, and each one brings something delicious to share. So Bear feels bad that he doesn't have any food to offer, but his friends remind him that he has something even more important, which are his stories and his friendship. So it's a nice book to read to remind kids that we aren't just grateful for things, but we should also be grateful for the people that we share in our lives. So for this story, you could send home a note and ask that each child bring in something to share for your classroom feast. It could be anything that they want to bring, chips, cookies, fruit, whatever. And then you could have a little classroom feast and have each child write or draw about something in their life that they're thankful for. So there you have it, 5 books that can help you teach your students about gratitude and being thankful, which is a great thing to do around Thanksgiving or really any time during the year. One thing that I'd be really thankful for is if you could take 2 minutes to leave a review for the show. It really helps other teachers decide if they like to listen to the show too. And so I have a special freebie for anyone who does leave a review. It's a special writing activity that goes along with the book, Thank You, Almu, which I mentioned earlier in the show. So if you leave a review, just send me a message at Firstieland on Instagram or send me an email at molly@firstieland.com and let me know that you left a review, and I'll send that freebie right out to you. I've also left the links in the show notes to everything that I mentioned today so you can find them easily. And until next week, take care and remember to make learning feel like play. See you next time.